Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about for loops in Python. We're going to discuss what a for loop is, and then we're going to talk about the range function and how you can use it on a for loop. A lot of times when we're writing code, we have to write code that does something multiple times. And if you write code multiple times, you can make your program really large, and you have code duplication, and this is also time consuming. And if you make a mistake, you're going to have to fix that mistake in multiple places, which can, increase the likelihood that you're going to have a lot of errors and you're going to have to spend a lot of time correcting them. So how do we fix this? When we have to put the same code multiple times, the best way to do that is to put it inside of a loop. So in Python, if we want to repeat something multiple times, all we have to do is put it inside the loop. And this eliminates the problem of duplicating code and writing code over and over again. We call a for loop a count-controlled loop. And this means that the loop iterates a specific number of times. The general for statement is, as it looks on this slide, you have a for, the word for basically, and then you have this target variable. And then you want to say in range, and in parentheses, you put a specific value or values, as we're going to see in the next few slides. And then we have our colon, and then inside of the for loop that is indented, we've got the statements that are going to get repeated over and over again in the loop. The target variable is going to hold the value of range each time your loop repeats. And we're going to see how this works. The range is a function, and it simplifies the process of writing a for loop. And the range can consist of either one argument, where you would use that number as your ending limit on the loop, two arguments, which means that the first argument is going to be your starting value, and the second argument will be your ending limit, and then three arguments where you can have your starting value, your ending limit, and then the third argument, which acts like a step. And when you have the third argument, it is the amount that your counter variable is going to increase each time you go through the loop. And we're going to work through an example for each one of these because I think it's really important that you understand the difference between a for loop with one argument, two arguments, or three arguments. Example 1, we're just going to look at a for loop with one argument in the range function. Here you can see we just have a number 5 inside of the parentheses for the range function. And the way this is going to work, and when the loop starts, you're always going to, if you have one number, your loop is always going to start at 0. 0 is going to be the first value. And what's going to happen here is 0 is going to get moved into the num, which is our target variable on the loop, and then we're going to print out whatever's in num. So you can see on the first iteration, we print out 0, and then automatically Python keeps track of the value inside of your range. So 0 is going to be incremented by 1, and then the second value we're going to be printing is 1, and so forth. And we're going to add 1 each time until we reach our value of 5. And the loop cannot continue if the value reaches 5 because that is our ending limit. When you only have one number in the range, you're going to automatically start at 0 and you're going to continue until you reach that ending limit. So as soon as the number 4 is incremented by 1, the loop checks and sees that the number 5 is the counter. Your loop is automatically going to stop. So the highest number we print here is the value 4. Now let's look at an example where we've got two values in the range. Here we start out with 5. Now when you put two numbers inside of the range, your first number is going to be your starting value, and your second number is going to be your limit. So in this case, you see we start at 5, and 5 is going to be printed on the first iteration. Then we add 1 to 5 and become 6. We check to see if we've reached our limit. We haven't, so we're going to print 6. Then we add 1 on the next iteration, which is the third iteration. We get to 7. After we print 7, we add 1 again, check our limit. We're not at 10, so then we're going to do the loop a fourth time, and in this case, we're going to print 8. Add 1, check to see if we're going to be at 10, which we're not. We're on our last iteration, which is the fifth iteration, and we're going to be sitting at 9. So we print 9, and then we add 1, and we finally reached our limit. So when we reach 10, we don't continue the loop. So we do the loop 5 times. We print the values 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We reach our limit, and then the loop stops. Our last example is going to show you what happens when you add a third argument, and that's called the step. So in this case, we have 5, 10, and 2. And what the 2 represents is how much you're going to increment your loop counter on each iteration. So as you can see, we start out with our starting argument, which is 5, and we're going to print 5. Now, instead of adding 1, we're going to add 2 each time the loop executes. So we start at 5 and print it, we add 2, and now we've got 7. We check our limit, we're not at 10 yet, so we're going to print 7. We add 2 again, we're at 9, check our limit, we're not at 10, so we do the loop a third time. Then we add 2 again. Well, at this point, we're sitting at 11. We check our limit and we've exceeded our limit, so we cannot continue the loop. So when num becomes 11, the loop stops. So in this case, our loop only executes 3 times. Because of the step, the loop does not increment or does not iterate as many times, because instead of incrementing by 1, you're going to be incrementing by 2. So you're going to reach your limit faster when you put a higher number in your step value. A lot of times what we want to do with the for loop is we want to use our target variable in some kind of calculation. So we might want to use it, for example, to square each number in our range. So that could be an example of how we might use it inside a calculation. The other thing we need to discuss is you can also put a negative value for your step. So your loop can execute in the opposite direction. So in this case, we've got a range starting at 10 and ending at 0. 0 would be our limit, and we're going to subtract 1 each time. So I want to make sure you understand you can also put a negative step, which would take your loop in the opposite direction. Okay, that's it for loops. I hope that you understand them a little bit better. And the best thing for you to do is to write some sample programs and try some different values in your for loops to really see how they work.